My name is Mike Hegwood. I'm the Assistant Vice President at AMA Insurance Agency. And on behalf of our agency, I'd like to welcome you all to this evening's educational event on Social Security planning. This is actually the third in 5 educational events we have planned for 2021, all on the topic of personal finance. And to date, this is by far our largest group. So thank you again for attending this evening. We certainly do appreciate it. Before we introduce tonight's speaker, I do want to take just a minute to thank our strategic marketing partner, Millennium Brokerage Group, located in Nashville, Tennessee, for their help and support in making tonight's event possible. We've had a very long-standing relationship with Millennium Brokerage. They've been a wonderful resource for us and for physicians all across the country through our Physicians Financial Partners program. I might also add, they are very, very well connected in the financial services industry and have been instrumental in helping us find and locate some exceptional speakers as part of our webinar series. And tonight's speaker is certainly no exception to that. So with that said, I would like to turn things over to Justin Sykes, Regional Vice President at Millennium Brokerage, to introduce tonight's speaker. Justin?
Terrific. Thanks, Mike, for the warm welcome. And thank you to everyone on the line that joined in. We've got a large attendance, as Mike alluded to, and I think that this will be time well spent. I think that this will give you a lot of information. I certainly hope so, at least. And I hope you leave feeling better about things. And certainly, we look forward to working with any of you that have additional questions after this presentations. The presentation tonight, as you all are aware, is regarding Social Security. And this is certainly an important topic that it really affects all of us, or at least hopefully it will affect all of us. Of course, there's many moving parts to the Social Security system. And for many people, it is a difficult system to understand. And Tim will go into some of the ins and outs of the program and some changes that have happened and might happen. But as of today, there's over 2,000 rules involved with Social Security. So that's something that is definitely, you've got to be an expert in that to truly understand it. And I think that all of us on the line definitely have room to grow there, with the exception of maybe one, Tim. Many people are also concerned about the sustainability of the system. It's something that's been a buzz for a long time. And obviously the sustainability can have a tremendous impact on not only our retirement planning, but also how we execute our retirement income once we hit that crucial point in our lives. So tonight we'll discuss the overall picture of Social Security. We'll be talking about some common situations and ways to maximize your filing position when you are ready to file and when you're eligible to file for Social Security. And we'll also show you some of the resources that are available to help you and your spouse, or to allow us to help you more adequately and help you to make the best decision based on the system as it's positioned today. So I don't want to take any more of the light of the presentation itself. So without further ado, I will introduce Tim O'Meara. Tim is a friend of mine who I've known for a long time. He is the Vice President of the Nationwide Retirement Institute at Nationwide Insurance, Nationwide Financial. He's been with Nationwide since February of 2010. And in his role, he is dedicated to educating clients and advisors about the latest in retirement income trends. Obviously, Social Security is one of those. Tim implements practical and comprehensive retirement income solutions. And one thing that I really like about working with Tim is he talks and he breaks things down in a language that's easy to understand, but at the same time, he stimulates the thinking and actions of all who listen to him. So I'm really excited to hear what Tim has to say. I have seen this presentation before, and it certainly does raise a lot of questions and answer a lot of questions at the same time. So without further ado, I will turn the screen. I guess, Tim, you already have the screen. I'll turn the presentation over to Tim O'Meara.
Justin, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm coming to you live from right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's a little steamy out there. Justin and I were talking, I haven't had a suit and tie on in a while, but we were toughing it out for this one tonight. So just to preface, I work for Nationwide. So before anybody gets nervous, I am not going to sell you car insurance or home insurance. What my job is inside the Nationwide Retirement Institute, as Justin alluded to, is to break down and simplify major retirement decisions. Some may be the ones we kind of concentrate on are kind of in retirement or beginning of retirement. So one of them, as you can imagine, is what is my decision going to be for Social Security? And we'll show you some different numbers as far as what that is. But what we're going to do today is not get into any product. This is our little disclaimer. We're not going to talk about any product. This is more about a process. There's going to be a way that you can work through our fact finder and through Millennial, and you can actually go back and actually run a full, what we call 360 analyzer. So as we get started, and again, we're going to be a little bit of abbreviated session than we're usually used to. So we're going to condense this down. So we're going to try to go through as much info as we can, but if there's going to be questions at the end, I will have a template that you can get an email address off of so you can send those in. So this is our agenda: Social Security, the choice of a lifetime, talk about Social Security basics, and then at the end, managing the discussion. So what is this going to look like? When I make my decision, what things do I want to look at? And all that stuff we're going to go through. So as we get started, what I want to do is lay down the foundation of the mentality of the Social Security Administration. Their whole thing is garnered around full retirement age. Now, full retirement age doesn't mean that if you've already worked and retired somewhere and you're not working anymore. It means when were you born and how old are you now? So to get to full retirement age, you need to be either 66 or 67. So those born 43 to 54, your full retirement age is 66. 55 through 59, they're doing this little quirky migration saying, okay, it's not 66, it's 66 in a couple months. And then finally, 1960, everyone is 67 or older. Now, but you can see on the screen, there's a 9-year range where you can start earlier. So if I'm not at full retirement age, then I'm not at 100%. So when you hear me or hear someone say full retirement age, what should go off in your head is, oh, that's when I get 100% of my check. Yes, you can take it early, but guess what? And I'm going to show you those percentages. It's not going to be 100. The closer you get to 100, the closer you are to 100%. But then what if you don't take it at your full retirement age? Well, then you can delay. Now, once you delay, they're going to go over 100. Now, a couple questions that usually happen when we're doing this live is, well, when do I have to turn on my Social Security? I'm going to tell you right now that the Social Security Administration is not proactive, meaning they are never going to tell you to turn it on, or they will never turn it on for you. Never happens. They're sitting there waiting because it's like, we have money. If they want it, they have to come get it. So understand, not proactive. Whenever you want to turn it on, it's completely up to you to go and make your decision. That's why we say this is a choice of a lifetime. A lot of different ages in there, a lot of different things that you want to look at. So when is everybody actually doing it? When can we, let me see if I can get this. When are we actually signing up? So as you can see here, we have 31% signing up at 62. That's the first page. We have another group, which is not 62, but it is 63, 64, and 65. Still under, so not at 100%, still under. They're turning it on. That's another 23%. Then we get to full retirement age at 66. It's a full third. It's our biggest group. But remember, people ask me all the time, Tim, how do I get the biggest Social Security check? Well, now it's based on math. Math says if you're going to keep getting delays and keep increasing, your biggest check comes to you at 70. If I show you this chart, you can see that 95% of people say, I'm not waiting. I'm not doing it till 70. That doesn't work for me. And I will be the first one to say, I 100% agree with you. I will not sit there and say, you have to wait till 70. And I will not be the one to sit here and say, you have to wait or you have to start it at 62, because that always doesn't work to maximize Social Security. So this is basically where it is looking. One thing that is different for us than it was probably for our parents and definitely for our grandparents is, remember, if you stop working prior to age 65, you're going to have to pay for your own health insurance. Back in the 70s and the 80s, I don't care where you worked. Almost everywhere that you worked, if you work there long enough, they said, hey, when you retire, just stay in the healthcare plan. But you guys know more than anybody what the cost of healthcare has done over the last 2 decades, 3 decades, and it's not slowing down. So what we have to ask people is, can you afford, one, to pay for healthcare for you and a spouse from 62 if you decide to retire all the way to 65? Or do you want to pay that amount of money? Because you can keep working and have great coverage. Otherwise, you have to pay private insurance. So that's a discussion that we have with folks that we never really had to have in the past. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to go into the basics. And so just so we can understand this, I'm not, my screen is not blocking out. I'm going to turn it off just so you know, and I'm going to come back on after we go through the basics. So here's the basics. Primary insurance amount. This is the calculation or how we get to that number based off all of our other numbers. And that number requires the Social Security Administration to go back and look at all of our years of earnings. It's going to be based on lifetime Social Security earnings adjusted for inflation. So what we made 15, 20, 25 years ago, they're going to take that and say, okay, let's inflate that to today's dollars. Then they're going to look and say, well, which year was the best? It doesn't mean last year has to be number one. It doesn't mean 2 years ago is number one. They're going to go back through all of your years and say, okay, now listen to this, I need 35 years of earnings to do the calculation. This is not, I need 10 years, I need the last 5, I need the highest 5, I need the highest 3. They're going to go back and get your highest 35. So if your best year was 8 years ago, that'll be number 1, then 2, then 3, and they'll stack them best all the way to worst. If you have 45 years of earnings, well, the bottom 10 are going to get thrown out. What if someone doesn't have 35 years of earnings? Well, then you know how averages work. If I need 35 numbers and they only have 30, then the number they're going to plug in is 0. We have to understand that all of the reporting that is going on, we're responsible for. Okay, we're gonna work the way Social Security works. Employer is taxed, employee is taxed. Money goes into the account, it's going to be managed, and then we're going to get paid on the other end. If for any reason that reporting is messed up, remember, they are not proactive. They're not going to call us and look at it. Now, think about highly compensated people that make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year for a long period of time. Their Social Security tax must be really, really big. And the reality is that they're not, because we only pay Social Security tax up to a certain income level. That income level, I'm rounding the number off, is $144,000. If someone makes $244,000 and the other person makes $144,000, someone makes $1.4 million a year for 35 years, none of it matters. Everyone's going to get the same check because there's a cap tax, therefore there's a cap check. Now, looking at this, the biggest check possible in 2021 is $3,148. That's it. There are not $5,000 and $6,000 checks running around. You may know someone that's getting a check slightly more than $3,148. They're probably older or they deferred. They've got cost of living adjustments. But the biggest check for a 66-year-old this year is $3,148. Now, I mentioned the Social Security Administration is not proactive. If you think back, 15, 20 years ago, everybody on the call, everybody would get a Social Security statement. And 50% of us never even opened them and just threw them away. People were like, oh, you guys are killing trees or whatever. And then all of a sudden, this new thing came out called the internet. And they told them, hey, do you know that the information you have in the statement you can put online? They can look it up themselves. And you don't have to send a statement out every year. Oh, that's a great idea. So let's do that. What they didn't do is convey to us that everyone that is paying into Social Security and has a Social Security account online, to access that, you need to go to www.ssa.gov. So www.ssa.gov/myaccount. Answer some questions about yourself, set up your username or password. And now, like I did, you have it on demand. I can look it up on my phone, on my computer, tablet, whatever. But we're responsible. Make sure your reporting looks right. If you know how much you make, it's consistent, but you look at your years and there's a dip in income or there's a glaring problem that there's a 0 and you know you worked, they're not going to call you. We're the ones that have to go through and fix that. Now, as far as statements go from now, as I mentioned, available on ssa.gov, create your online profile. We're supposed to get them every 5 years, starting at age 25, then 30, 35, and so on, up until age 60. Then you get it every year until you decide to file. This is what our statements look like. Just to recap, this is probably elementary for a lot of folks, but your payment would be, okay, and this is just a hypothetical statement, $1,827. Now, that's your PIA. That's your at full retirement age number. But what other numbers do they give you? Oh, we're going to give you what your primary insurance amount is at 67 for this example. But if you wait till 70, here's your $2,266. And if you take it early, it's $1,271. Now, we have a major problem. And what we do in our report is we give you every dollar amount for all 9 ages from 62 all the way through to 70. Now, the good news is the Social Security Administration has a pilot program out right now where they're going to do the same thing. If you're giving me 3 numbers, why can't you give me the other 6? The biggest one is people want to know, well, what if I bridge myself to Medicare age? What does my Social Security look like then? What if I just wait until I'm 66, maybe not till full retirement age? I'll walk you through those percentages. Okay. Our reporting, it'll show your years worked, and this is chronological. So again, just a snapshot, go back, look at it, make sure it's correct and there's no glaring zeros. Touch on full retirement age again. So what does it look like? Well, I can take it early. So those of us on the call that would be full retirement age of 66, here's what your percentages look like. My check says I'm going to get $1,000 at 66. I'm going to go in at 62 and I'm going to take it. Okay, if you're going to take it, then you're going to get knocked down to 75%. If you wait, you're going to go up to 80. If you wait another year, 86, 93. But here is what does not happen. Does not happen, okay? You do not start at 75% and then get a pay raise to 80 and a pay raise to 86 and a pay raise to 93. Whatever time you decide, whenever you decide to turn on your Social Security check, the rest of the chart disappears. Only way your check goes up is through cost of living adjustment. That's the only way. Then we hit 100%, and then we get our increases. It's also the biggest increase per year. Looks attractive. They're going to give you 8% net for 4 years. It's going to be 132%. That looks great. I'm more worried about this number. The 132% looks great, sounds great. I showed you a chart. How many people actually do it? 5%. However, if you start from the bottom and start weighting all the way to the top, there's an increase possibility of over 70% of your check. I'm not saying wait all the way, but if you have the ability to wait, if there's certain circumstances where you say, well, maybe I am going to work to 65, then wait till 65 and get 93%. If you have a spouse that is younger and they're on your healthcare and you may have to work to 67 to get them to 65, well, now you're going to be at 108% if you delay. The good thing is the minute you hit full retirement age, the minute you hit 66, you can take your check and work without any penalties or withholding at all. It's like all the handcuffs come off when you hit full retirement. So at full retirement age, you want your check, you can turn your check on, you can make as much as you want. They're not going to handicap you at all, and you're free and clear to go. Now, what about those of us who are on a call that are 67? Well, we have to move everything over one. So if we move everything over to the right, that means something has to replace 75, and we start at 70%, and you go back to the same schedule, 75, 80, 86, 93, up to 100. But remember, you can only delay up to 100 or up to 70. There was a question that came in pre-webinar. Do I have to turn my Social Security check on at 70, or will they turn my check on for me automatically? Goes back to my proactive. They are not proactive. They will never turn your check on. However, if you wait past 70 and you haven't turned your check on, there is no more magic. There is no more increases. So literally you're missing out on money because they're sitting back here saying you're at 124. You're not taking your check. That's on you. So we have to make sure that we are doing everything we can to take the check. So now it's up 24% because it's only 3 years, not 4, but it's still 70% from the bottom to the top. All right. So managing the discussion. What I'm going to do now in the last few minutes that we have together, we got about 10 more minutes. I'm going to introduce you to the Nationwide 360 Analyzer. This is a way for you to answer a few questions. Just an FYI, we have no access to anyone's Social Security account. Answer a few questions. What we're going to do is put it through this is not a calculator, this is an analyzer. So if it's just you, we're going to analyze just you. If it's a couple, we're going to analyze the couple, look at surviving. I'm going to talk about some different strategies as we go through right now, but I'm going to walk you through some filing strategies, and then we're going to look at what happens when we go into 360 Analyze. So spousal filing rules. I'm going to introduce you to my parents, Tim and Chris. They got married at a very young age. Mom was 21, dad was a couple years old. Now, if my mom's 21 and she needs 10 years to qualify for Social Security, that means she had to start working when she was 11 if she wasn't going to work anymore. But that wasn't the reality, right? So at 21, she had a couple years of work, just got married, going to raise the kids. Dad's going to run the business. Mom's going to run the house and raise the kids, which she did. I'm the oldest of 3 until my sister went off to college. Well, my sister goes off to college. Dad comes and says, well, what are we going to do now? He goes, I have an idea. Why don't you come work with me at the restaurant and I'll pay you under the table. Well, she didn't have enough quarters to begin with. And now she's not getting any quarters because she was raising us. And then she actually goes to work, but she's not going through the system. So she's not crediting towards Social Security. So she literally doesn't even have a Social Security account. But if she is 62, married for at least 1 year to my dad, which they were married, they are still married. And once my dad filed for his benefit, she is allowed to go and file for a claim on his. So dad goes in, he files at 66, his full retirement age. They go, Tim, here's your $2,000. My mom comes in, says, and we're going to make them, for this example, we're going to make them the same age. She comes in, she goes, hey, I am 66, married for more than 1 year. He just filed. I want to file on his account. They say, okay, we'll give you up to 50% of his PIA, not check, up to 50% of PIA. And I'll explain that as we go through the next couple scenarios. So she gets a check for $1,000. It's not a reduction of my dad's check. He stays at $2,000. She gets $1,000. We just added $1,000 to the household. The way it works is you get up to 50%. Change the age. Dad is 66. Mom is 62. Dad files. He gets a check for $2,000. She files. They go, hey, Chris, here's your $1,000. But wait a minute. How old are you? She goes, oh, I'm 62. Oh, you're not at your full retirement age. So we're going to knock you down to that 75% that I showed you on the chart. Doesn't matter where you're taking the check from. If it's from your own account, from a spouse, from an ex-spouse, or as a widow, you will always, always be reduced because of age, every single time. Okay. Now, the other thing that we can do, I just showed you how you can defer. So my dad's going to say, wait, what if I delay? I can get a bigger check. It is $2,000. I can get that thing to grow to $2,640. And then he goes to my mom. He's like, look, I can get a bigger check. And also you're going to get a bigger check because you get 50% of what I have. So they think. My mom goes, okay, I guess let's roll the dice. Dad goes all the way to 70. He gets his check for $2,640. Mom files. They go, okay, Chris, here's your check for $1,000. She goes, wait a minute. I thought I was going to get 1,320. They're like, no. You don't get half of the check. You get up to half of his primary insurance amount, which is that number back when he was age 66. So there is no benefit to delay to increase your check in order for the spouse to get half. It doesn't work that way. That's a couple spousal filing rules, some of the things that we run into. Surviving spouse, just quickly, again, different set of rules, married for at least 9 months. Benefits can be taken as early as 60. So you can take it early, but what happens a lot of times, if you think about it, people will go in there and they're like, well, my husband died at 52. Do I get a benefit? No, you have to come back at 60. By that time, when they come back, they're working, they have income, they're 60, but when they go to do the reduction on age and then they do something called the earnings test that says, well, you're making money, so you can't get the full benefit anyway. By the time they're done, I've had certain cases where the surviving spouse gets zero check because the two reductions wipe it out. There's nothing even there. But in general, how do surviving spouses work? Go back to Tim and Chris, mom and dad getting 2,000, mom getting 1,000, fast forward. We fast forward to 72, dad's getting 2,200, mom's getting 1,100. Mom passes away. Well, when mom passes away, unfortunately, the check goes away. There is no instances or scenarios in Social Security where one person can get two checks. It doesn't happen. So what happens if my dad passes away? Well, now what can happen is you can always retain, as the surviving spouse, you can retain the higher of the two checks. But mom has to go down and file. Remember how I told you that the Social Security Administration is not, they are not an active agency. They are reactive, they are not proactive. You want to know the only proactive thing they do? Stop our checks when we die. That's it. They don't even send a letter to my mom that says you can go down and file for a bigger benefit. So people have to be in the know and understand, okay, there's two checks. If the lower person, the smaller check passes away first, the other person retains their check. If the higher wage earner, the bigger check passes away first, then the lower check needs to go and sign up and then get they get 100% of that check. So you're going to be able to do that, right? So you have to understand how surviving spouses work. And again, must be married for at least 9 months, okay? Now, one of the trickier ones is divorced spouses. It says divorced spouses, but I like to title it as an ex-spousal benefit. What that means is everything that a spouse can do while they are married, an ex can also file the exact same way on someone that they were married to for at least 10 years. Has to be 10 years. You cannot be married to someone for 9 years in 2 months. Doesn't work. 9 years, 11 months and 3 weeks. Doesn't work. They want marriage certificate, divorce decree. You cannot be married for more than 10 years, divorced, be married to someone else and want to file off your ex because you are currently the spouse. And then the last thing, remember how as a spouse, my mom could not file until my dad turned on his benefit. That does not work the same way. Could you imagine my in-laws who are divorced, love them to death. I make fun of them every presentation. Could you imagine if I had to go to my father-in-law and be like, Tom, can you do me a favor? I need you to file on your Social Security account in order for your ex-wife of 25 years ago to be able to access it. You know where he would tell me to go, number one. And then he would probably say, I'm not going to turn my benefit on until I'm 90 if I can control it. So they don't give that control. The other thing that people think, I'm the ex, which is what my mother-in-law was thinking, I get to go take half of his check when I turn 66. And I'm like, no, his check's not going to change. You're just going to get half paid to you out of the same account. So people think, I'm going to go ding somebody one more time, and it doesn't work that way, okay? So there's a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different rules and regs that we talk about. We're basically just scratching the surface, but what we want to be able to do is we want to be able for you to make an informed Social Security decision. That's our whole goal. Understand that there's a massive resource. I'm going to show you the process right now that you can use that will give you a personalized breakdown and analysis of your own Social Security situation. It's very, very simple. I'm not going to ask you for your Social Security number. I am going to ask you, though, go find on your statement, will you please tell me, I need $1 amount. Tell me what your primary insurance amount is, or what is your amount at your full retirement age. From that point on, we can do the calculations. We'll compare that. If we're married, we'll compare that, and then we'll look at spousal benefits. We'll look at survivor benefits. We'll give suggestions. The big one is higher wage earner is a male. Lower wage earner is a female plus. There's an age gap there. Male is older. We encourage that person to defer as much as they're comfortable with because you're leaving a legacy payment to the surviving spouse. So what we do here is we'll have all of your information in it, okay? This is just an example. We're going to give you how much based on you telling us what your life expectancy is. Tell us how long are you going to live. Tell us what your full retirement age amount is. We're going to do scenarios and tell you if you take it at these different times, how can you get the most money, which is on the right in the black bar. That's the most money for this couple with Jim living to, I believe, 85 and Linda living to. Now, you don't think you're going to live that far? We're going to readjust those. You'll still have different numbers. But if they're going to live that long, every strategy is going to say delay as much as possible. And they're going to say, I don't think I'm comfortable with that. 95% of people I already showed you said, I'm not comfortable with that, which is fine. Let's go a little earlier in orange. That's still kind of way out there. Well, let's go a little earlier. We'll get you both paid earlier. That's in the turquoise. And what if you guys both did it in the beginning? Well, that's in gray, because a lot of people think I got to take it as early as possible to get paid as much as I can over my lifetime. As you can see here in this scenario, if you started right at 62, lived that long, you actually would get the least amount of money. We're here to break down, look at different ways. You can run this report one way, come back and change your life expectancy. A couple other things it does for you. It gives you a break even. It takes a look at what scenario works the best. What scenario works here? We have orange working in some scenarios. If you live a long time, of course, suggested it's going to work because you're living so long. But every person's individual break-even chart will be different. What we also do is we show you, here's what's going to happen. On the left-hand side of the orange, this is what your earning years. This is me working up until whenever. Is that working till 65? Is it working till 62? But here's what your income is. How much do you need in retirement? Well, here's what you're making. Then what we're going to show you is, okay, you tell us you need $100,000 in retirement. We're going to show you how much Social Security contributes to that. As you can see, it doesn't contribute all of it. So there's going to be a shortfall. So we have to bring in, this is working through the other assets. What else can I do? What other things do I have in order to satisfy what I need to live off of? This is very simple retirement planning 101. Here's what I need. I have a guaranteed income stream, which is Social Security. It's either 1 or 2 checks. How much are they going to pay me? This is how much they're going to pay me. I have a shortfall. I need to fill the shortfall in. What do I have? Not sure how many of us on here are lucky enough to have a pension. Those are few and far between. Taking money out of the 401k, taking money out of deferred assets, general savings, selling of a practice. If anybody's going to sell their practice at a later time, that's going to be income. All those different things that you guys, all of those things we have to kind of look at when we start walking through Social Security in retirement. Then we do the spreadsheet for you on the cash flow. So it's taking the chart basically and just putting in a spreadsheet. Here's where you need 100,000. Okay. So it says you need 90, but you actually are working and making 100, so you're over. And then when you drop down into the gap, you need 90. Well, you haven't started anything yet, so you're going to need all of that. We walk you through year by year by year. When do the checks kick in? Now we're both getting paid. Her benefit as he passes away at 86, she now becomes a survivor benefit as she's living longer. And again, remember, she was younger in that scenario. All this information we can do for you. And there's absolutely zero, never any charge for any. Okay. Now, as we look at this, this is the form as a follow-up. This will be emailed out to everyone that's on the call. Okay. Just so you understand, if you look at this picture, it's a little blurry, I'll blow it up. The gray box, there is no need for you to have any information in the gray box. That is not for you. That is for the licensed financial professionals that submit it to Nationwide. We are not permitted, nor do we ask you for. I will not have anybody's information on this that's on this call. I will not know your or ask you for a phone number, an email, a home address, web address, Instagram, Twitter, none of it. We won't ask you for any of it. We're going to take all the information from the financial advisor and we're going to send it back to that financial advisor team that I'm going to show you here on the last slide. Your information goes here. So it's one block for an individual, okay? Answer those questions. The only thing you may have to look up, how much is my full retirement age? For the spouse, exact same thing. We're just going to need to know the exact same information. Then on there, there's also one for widows and also for divorce. A couple other little boxes that if that is part of your scenario, then we'll ask you some questions, answer those, and we can do that. And then from that point on, this is the team that's going to be handling. Okay. So we'll filter everything back through them. They'll get it to us. Takes us about 3 to 4 business days. We'll get it back over to you. But once you get it back, if there's any questions, they have access to me and my team. I am one of 5 that sit around the country and do what we do for Nationwide. So I have basically the Southeast. That's why Justin and I have been working together for years. And I know I know 5 of the 6 folks that are on the screen as well in past lives in the industry. So anything that we can do, let us help you as far as Social Security. But step 1 is going to be, once they send you out the fact finder, make sure you go ahead and send that fact finder back in and give us a couple of days to get it back to you. So with that, before we wrap up, do you want me to address a couple of questions, Justin, real quick that we had talked about?
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for consolidating that as well, as far as taking a complicated project and breaking it down right there. I've seen this presentation, and I know there's a lot more information that can be had, but you really covered the nuts and the bolts of that, so I thank you for that. You know, it's a lot to take in, and it's interesting. The title of the presentation is The Choice of a Lifetime, and seeing that range of, you know, anywhere between 70 and 124%, that's a big range, and that really can have a tremendous effect. And so many people, like you said earlier, just jump on it. And for some people, that might be the right decision to take it as soon as possible. And then for some people, of course, especially if longevity is a factor, which we all hope it is, then waiting as long as you can makes a big difference. So we do have some questions. We actually got a lot of questions, both emailed in advance and also on the Q&A feature here. I've responded.
You want me to go ahead and answer a couple of those?
Yeah, if you want to, that'd be great. There's a couple of them that kind of go together. So if you can see those and you want to go ahead and answer those, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, the one I wanted, because it was in there, and it's a great question, is the viability of Social Security. And there's a couple other questions that came around that. One is, how is, unfortunately, the COVID pandemic that we just went through, how many elderly we have lost, how does that affect it? There's no numbers out there right now. But naturally, if a majority of those folks were receiving a Social Security check, it takes a little bit of burden off of Social Security. But it's not going to change. It's not going to make Social Security viable going forward. That's just a blip. What's going to happen, because what we have to understand is the baby boomer surge right now, and most of us on here may know this, but the baby boomer surge started in 2014. That means there's 10,000 people a day turning 65, which means 10,000 people the next year turn 66, and then 67 going through. That is going to continue all the way till 2034. So that's the biggest crush that is on Social Security. So that goes into, well, is it viable? Here's how Social Security works. Tax the employer, tax the employee, put money in the bucket, manage the bucket, then pay people on the other side when they're in retirement. Now, right now, there's money going in, money going out, that's fine. But at one point, there won't be enough money in the bucket. Now, what I will say is there's no possible way it can go to zero, because we're never going to stop taxing us, the employee or the employer. So there's always going to be some money going in the bucket. It's just in 2035, here's how much we need. Here's how much we actually have. The numbers range anywhere. We'll have between 77 to 79% of what we need. So that means in 2035, when the shortfall hits, if we do nothing, whatever you were set to get, you're going to get 77 to 79% of that. Whatever you were getting the year before, they're going to reduce it down to 77 to 79%. That's viability. So now there's a couple things we can do to change that. There's laws that they'll have to look into. The other thing that's going to happen, but we don't know how fast or if it's going to be fast enough, just as big as the boomers are, the millennials are bigger. Problem is they're not in their peak earning years yet in order to be kind of up on the top of that rung, throwing more money into Social Security. It may catch up, but they're going to have to do something probably over the next, before 2034 in order to make it viable. So I'm glad that question was asked. A couple other questions.
Tim, I was looking at the simple one there about what do I need to do in the years if I expect to retire at my normal retirement age. Is there anything that I need to do proactively to make that happen, or do I just need to wait until I'm 65 and file, or 67 or whatever your normal retirement age is?
So no, actually retiring. You're talking about retiring on your 65th birthday? That one?
Well, it just says, is there anything I should do in the years preceding the expectation of retiring? I'm going to say at normal retirement age.
Yeah, like 65. Yeah. So there's nothing, and again, if you're lucky enough to retire, I want to answer this question, but if you're lucky enough to retire at 62 and you have healthcare provider, or you have healthcare insurance, or you want to pay healthcare insurance, no one's going to send you the check. So you can not work and not take Social Security. Nothing says that once I stop working, I have to turn my check on. Remember, they're not proactive. So it's a decision that you can make. Is there anything that you need to do prior to age 65? No, it would just be remember, they need 35 years. Make sure that if you look at your work history, there's more than 35 years and you don't want to work anymore, then you're fine. Then whenever you want to turn on Social Security, you can. But there's nothing that you really have to do prior to 65 or 66 for retirement. Hope that helped.
Okay, that makes sense. And what if you, well, I guess it answers the same question. If you are waiting longer, you don't need to notify them, because you're just going to file when you file.
No, I mean, like if I had to kind of do a character of it, I mean, this is what they're doing. They're just waiting. Yeah, right? They're not calling out. They're like, hey, happy birthday, you just turned 70. Do you want your check? They never do it. Like it's all of us have to go to them in order to elect our benefit. Okay.
Understood.
Which people get a little confused, because if we talk about Medicare, not to confuse the two, but Medicare is going to bombard you all the way up to age 65. Mm-hmm. Everybody from 64 and a half to 65 and through that, every insurance company in the world, and you all probably know this as well as anybody else, every insurance company in the world knows we're turning 65, and they are just inundating us with stuff. Mm-hmm. And saying you got to sign up and there's going to be a penalty, but that doesn't work the same way with Social Security.
Understood. Let me ask you, I received a couple questions in the chat feature, Tim. This one says, my wife is already collecting on her Social Security benefit, and he is still working. When I file, will my wife step up to 50% of his amount, or will she remain at her amount because she's already filed on her own?
No, in that scenario, because she's on her own over here, getting X, making the assumption that when he files, his amount at 50% is bigger than hers, mm-hmm. She will then act and she will drop her benefit and file for a spousal benefit. Yes, she will step up. Yes, that will work.
So that's good news. I'm looking through these questions, trying to kind of keep them consistent here. If a spouse is on if a spouse is on Social Security disability at age 63, are there any effects for me or her when I hit age 66, which is, I guess, normal retirement age? So if the spouse is on disability payment, could that payment potentially increase as a 50% benefit, spousal benefit, if it is?
Yeah, so it's kind of the same scenario. If whatever she's getting in disability, once that person turns 66 and elects, that opens the account up for the spouse to go and file for 50%. So if 50% is bigger than a disability check, that would be another step up scenario.
Terrific. And let's see. Disabled dependents. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just real quick. Is Social Security payment at 66 taxable if I'm still working? Answer is yes. Social Security has to be thrown on your tax return. Now, it doesn't hit your tax return at 100% income. So what I tell everybody, if you have $10,000, it's going to look like $8,500 on your tax return. There's a little bit of a break, a little bit of a reduction.
So let's talk about that for a second. Now, don't your earnings from your employment, doesn't that potentially offset your Social Security?
So that's if And I usually do that if we have more time. It's called the earnings test. Okay. So if you look at that age bracket, 62 to 70, at any time under your full retirement age, so ages 62, 63, 64, 65, if you are going to work and ask for your check, there is an amount that they say you can earn. Once you go over that, the number is, it's 18,960, I think. Once you go over 18,960, they go over and when before you get your check, they say, wait a minute, he made 38,960. That's 20,000 over. We're going to withhold $1 for every 2 that they went over. So we divide that 20 by 2. They're going to take or pull back and withhold $10,000 of income, of Social Security income.
And now that only matters if you're filing for Social Security before your full retirement age. After full retirement age, you can make as much as you want and file and receive full benefit.
You can make $2 million a year at full retirement age and get 100% of your check. Now, just to preface so people don't get nervous, when we talk about the earnings test, it is on earnings, not income. It is on W-2 wages, 1099 contract wages, and if you have a small business and you're paying FICA. It is not money out of a profit sharing plan. It is not from the sale of a business. It is not, could be, but not. It is not money that you pull out of a 401k or an IRA or an annuity payment that you have. That's income. That's not wages.
Understood. Tim, 2 more questions that I'd like to ask real quick in interest of everyone's time. Is there a minimum Social Security benefit? As long as you've worked at 30, 35 years, or as long as you've worked at 10 years, between 10 and 35 years, is there a minimum benefit or is it purely a fraction of your earnings?
It's always going to be based on your earnings. And so what it is, the lowest is going to be, okay, I need to work 40 quarters or 10 years. An accredited quarter is when you make $1,200 a quarter. So if you think $4,800 a year, so $48,000 a year, we're talking a very, very small Social Security check.
Gotcha. So for all intents and purposes, there's not really a minimum benefit.
No.
Got it. Okay. And then this is one that actually 2 people have asked about disabled dependents. This one says, I have a child now who's 33 who receives Social Security income. Someone told me that when I retire, she can move over to Social Security disability benefits. I'm assuming that's SSDI, which would be disability benefits, which will be based off of my Social Security benefits and more than her Social Security income benefits.
That is correct. They would need to explore that option.
And that's something they need to reach out directly to. When it comes to disability with children, that's something they need to reach out directly to the local Social Security office.
Yes, definitely.
Good enough. Good enough. And there are a few other questions. I think we covered most of the other questions, if not directly in a roundabout way during the presentation. So I'm not going to go through every single one of those. But like we said earlier in the presentation, there will be an email that is sent out tomorrow, and it'll contain the email address, which is also on the top of this page, where you can send for additional questions. The email address is info@pfpprogram.com, and that's PFP as in Physicians Financial Partners. So info@pfpprogram.com. Quite frankly, I have received several emails already, and there have been some very specific questions that have come through. When there are very specific questions, like the one about the disabled dependent, or had one from someone who lives overseas, there are going to be some circumstances where we're going to just refer you to your local Social Security office, and that is to avoid the chances of misinforming you, of course. One thing that we will send out, like Tim mentioned earlier, is that fact finder sheet. I would encourage each of you to go ahead as soon as possible and pull your most recent statement if you're interested in learning more. That will help you complete that fact finder sheet completely and correctly. And once you send that in, you'll return that back to us, and we'll get with Nationwide and get your personalized report, which will give you the specifics of when the ideal time is, at least based on the numbers in the algorithm, when the ideal time to file is, and kind of the overall benefits, like Tim, the overall lifetime benefits that you receive, or that you'll be projected to receive, like Tim mentioned earlier. So more information to come on that. And like I said, feel free to email us. Again, Tim, thank you for a great presentation on an important topic that you've managed again to simplify a complex situation. So thank you for that. And again, thank you to all of you who joined us tonight and took this time out of your evening. I hope it was time well spent. I know that even though I've seen this a couple of times, I've learned something on this call as well. So thank you all, and we will look forward to being back in touch via email and hopefully hearing back from several of you after this meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a great evening.